大家早晨。
Members, good morning. This is the appointed time and we have a quorum. I call to order this meeting of the panel on final affairs. Item 1. Information papers issued since the last meeting. We've issued 4 papers. You will find the details set out in the agenda. Item 2. Schedule of meetings for the remainder of the 2025 session. Now, we've made reference to the timetable and schedule of meetings for the remainder of the 2025 session and our convention of holding regular meetings on the 4th Monday of each month. As you can see, we have proposed a number of slots for the regular meetings, including 2:30, 28th of July, 2025, 2:30, 22nd of September, 2025, and also we will be moving forward one of these meetings originally scheduled later. It will be held at 2:30, the 13th of October. So any views? If there is no objection, at the next meeting we will be discussing the following items. First of all, the next regular meeting is scheduled for 28th of April 2025, a Monday at 2:30. The administration has proposed to discuss the district cooling system or DCS and also review of the 9th technical memorandum for allocation of emission allowances for power plants. Members, do you agree with the arrangement? Right. We then move on to the next item. That is improvement of environmental quality in Hong Kong. Let's invite the administration to come in. I see we have a big team from the administration, including Mr. Che Chin-wan, Secretary for Environment and Ecology, Dr. Samuel Choi, Director of Environmental Protection, Dr. Vanessa Au, Deputy Director of Environmental Protection, Mr. Raymond Wu, also Deputy Director, Ms. Teresa Wu, Assistant Director, and Mr. Stephen Siu, Assistant Director, Ms. Heidi Lam, Principal EPO, and Mr. Tony Lee, Senior EPO, Environmental Protection Officer. Secretary will take the floor. He will be briefing members on the paper. Thank you, Chairman. Members. Now, the overall environmental quality in Hong Kong has continued to improve, and we'd like to brief members on a number of areas, including air quality, water, and waste management facilities. I will give an update on these 3 areas. At the same time, in relation to the integrated waste management facilities, Phase 1, IPARC 1, and also the Northeast New Territories Landfill Extension, West New Territories Landfill Extensions, they will be commissioned in due course, and as such, there is a need to amend certain pieces of legislation. We'd like to seek members' views on these matters. Now, with efforts on the part of the government over the years, air quality and water quality in Hong Kong have continued to improve. On air quality, the air pollutant levels have continued to decline, and it in fact is the lowest since 1997. Comparing to 2004, the major pollutants in the ambient environment have substantially decreased by 40 to 90%. In Tsuen Wan, Sham Shui Po, Kowloon City, the relevant sewage discharge from stormwater outfalls have continued to increase, and the nearshore odor in the 3 districts mentioned have also substantially improved. And we'll also like to brief members on waste reduction. With our efforts in waste reduction and recycling, we've continued to improve. The situation has continued to improve. The annual average disposal volume of MSW has decreased by 7.5%. That's a 3-year continuous decline compared to 2021. And we're taking forward a number of highly efficient modernized facilities such as IPARC 1 with a daily capacity of 3,000 tons and IPARC 2 with a daily capacity of 6,000 tons. At the same time, we also need to suitably extend the two landfills, and that is NENT and WENT, so that before we're able to complete the network of the integrated waste management treatment facilities, we can properly dispose of waste in the interim. And that is why we need to move a number of technical amendments to the legislation, including the Waste Disposal Designated Waste Disposal Facility Regulation CAP 354L, so as to include Part 1 and the landfill extensions mentioned into the subsidiary legislation. That is CAP 354N. That's another piece of legislation. Waste disposal charges for disposal of construction waste regulation. In order to regulate matters relating to construction waste billing accounts, I'll give the floor to the Director of EP to give a detail of their work, and we'll be happy to take questions and comments from the floor later. Well, thank you, Chairman. First of all, in the past 20 years, from 2004 and 2024, the air pollutant levels have continued to decrease. The major air pollutants have decreased in concentration from 45 to 88%, in particular nitrogen oxides, RSPs, or PM10, PM2.5, and also sulfur dioxide. These are the major pollutants. Meanwhile, we notice a rise in ozone levels. As explained in the paper, when the concentration levels of NOx decrease, nitrogen monoxide will also decrease, and that means nitrogen dioxide is supposed to neutralize ozone, but with a decrease in nitrogen monoxide, ozone increases. That's also the global trend. We will continue to work on NOx as well as VOCs. With these efforts, we'll be able to suppress the ozone levels. In the Pearl River Delta, we'll also notice a significant improvement in PM2.5 concentration. In fact, that's a significant improvement over a period of 20 years. As you can see from these pictures, above Hong Kong, the color has turned blue, and that's an improvement. In terms of reduced visibility, it has reduced from 1,600 hours to just about 200 hours or so, 286, and that's a drop of 82%, and that means there is good visibility and you can definitely enjoy the view across the harbor. As for Air Quality Health Index, AQHI, the percentages of the hourly AQHI below 7 were about 99%, so that's also an increase. We've also conducted a study on the long-term health risk, basing our study on the figures collected in the past 20 years and using the WHO yardsticks. We noticed that from 2020 to 2024, there's been a significant decrease by a certain percentage, and that meets the WHO IT2 interim targets phase 2. Now we're on a par with many cities in advanced countries. That's WHO IT2. And in the past 20 years, in terms of the long-term health risk, we've reduced the risk by 50%. On water quality, after introducing the Harbor Area Treatment Scheme, or HATS, we've noticed a significant increase in different indices. For example, for E. coli volume, it's decreased from 4,500 to about 300, 400, and I'm not going to give you I'm not going to go through other details relating to other indicators. Safe to say that we have held a number of events of the Harbour Race, including the World Triathlon Cup, Asia World Triathlon, as well as the triathlon of the 15 national games of our country. We have also been monitoring the water quality by conducting tests, and we understand that for the area to be where the race is to be held, the water quality is of standard. And for near shore, we have likewise conducted a number of exercises. For example, starting from 2022, we commenced a major study in relation to soil misconduction. We checked over 10,000 manholes and tested over 2,000 water samples to identify pollution sources. In fact, we have restored or rectified, corrected 132 sewer misconnections, and that's almost all we have identified. In terms of overall pollution load, it has reached 87%, and that has exceeded the target in the 2022 policy address, and that is the, according to the KPI, we should reduce the load by half. We've adopted different methods in terms of sampling. We've also leveraged on advanced technology such as sonar inspection boats and ground penetration radars. Apart from improving water quality, near shore, we also strive to improve air quality. In fact, there has been a significant improvement, such as the area in Chuen Long waterfront promenade. The concentration levels have gone down by 90%. For hydrogen sulfide, the concentration dropped from 35 to somewhere in the single-digit range. So that's a significant increase, and the majority of residents agree that there has been a significant improvement as well. In another area, such as Cheung-hung promenade, likewise, there has been a significant improvement. The H2S concentration dropped by 50%. Basically, in To Kwa Wan and Kai Tak, the odor problem is basically solved. And at this point, I will give the floor to Deputy Director to brief members on the rest of the paper. Now, according to the government, we should achieve zero waste zero waste at landfills by 2035, and that means we need to work on both upstream and the downstream. Over the years, we have done a lot in reducing waste. In 2021, about 11,400 tons of waste were sent to landfills. Now, with a 3-year continuous decline, the figure has dropped to 10,500. That's down by 7.5%. Riding on this trend, we continue to do more to reduce waste. Now, that includes a number of initiatives. For example, the public recycling collection points will substantially increase to 800 within this year for green and community recycling facilities. The operating hours will also be optimized. Now, food waste collection facilities. The collection point will also increase substantially from 13 to 1,600, and we'll also mount public education campaigns. As for the waste-to-energy incineration facilities, there are 2 major facilities. One is Park 1, is built on an artificial island. Well, we've faced some headwinds because of inclement weather and the pandemic. But with our team's efforts, iPark should commence operation within 2025. For iPark 2, we started open tendering last year. It has a capacity of 6,000 tons per day, and we will be applying for funding with LegCo after we close a tender in June this year. Upon commissioning of the 2 facilities, we will stop the NENT from accepting MSW. But meanwhile, we have 2 landfills still accepting MSWs. So in 2026, they will reach their capacity. We need to suitably expand the 2 landfills as an interim measure. As regards the NENT, in the past 3 years, we've invested a lot of resources in addressing different issues such as odor and management. The figures, as you can see, the complaint figures have also dropped from 500 at its peak to 47. So that's a drop of about 90%. And we'll also apply this experience in the NENT and WENT expansions. Now, finally, as I said, with the two facilities being commissioned in 2025 and 2026, respectively, we need to amend the subsidiary legislation that's KEP 354L, this waste disposal designated facility regulation, as well as waste disposal charges for disposal of construction waste regulation KEP 354N, to empower the Director of Environmental Protection to perform certain functions. And we also need to amend the regulation for handling construction waste billing accounts. We will table the bill into LegCo in May. For IPARC, we seek to commission the facility in the 1st of April, and the extension will be commissioned on the 1st of January.
And I open the floor for questions from members. Lining up are Ms. Chen Yuen-ming, Mr. Chen Siu-hong, Mr. Robert Lee, Ms. Carmen Kai, Mr. KWOK Wai-keung, Mr. Frankie Yik, Mr. Chung-hung, followed by Mr. Chu Kwok-keung. 4 minutes each member. Questions and answers inclusive. We start with Ms. Chen Yuen-ming. Thank you, Chairman. A couple of questions. Now, for the KWOK incinerator that will open this year, and we're seeing a drop in our municipal solid waste for 3 years in a row. That's taking pressure off the landfills. But the northeast landfill is expanding, and I'm sad to see that. That area is a priority area for the northern metropolis. Land will be resumed. That area will become a place for flats and businesses. There will be jobs. There will be people. Around that area, you will see the eco corridor. And there is already culture, sport, and tourism events. There are people come here for hiking in that area near the northeast landfill. So on the other side of the Shenzhen River, people live there. But on our side, we still see a landfill. And that landfill will continue to receive construction waste. This is undesirable, and that will hold back the area. In a few years' time, in the areas around the northeast landfill, there will be flattened businesses. So once we have IPARC 1 running, will we see less waste going to northeast landfill? Do we have estimated figures? During the 2 sessions, our country's Environment and Ecology Ministry said they were looking at ways to help us deal with our waste. So how are we coming along in our Zero Waste Bay Area initiative? So I would like some written response after the meeting on that point. Now I want to talk about the pig farms and the area around the area. Even yesterday, residents living near the pig farms near the northeast landfill told me around dinner time, people could smell the feces of pigs. So people suspected that there was illegal discharge of feces. Drones could not capture the illegal discharge. People could smell the feces, and that was a real nuisance to people. And people there had to put up with the smell of the feces during dinner, and that's saddening to see. So I call on the government to take cross-departmental operations and look into ways to improve the air near the pig farms. Secretary. The DAP can tell us about the control over the pig farms in a moment, but I want to say a few words first. Indeed, IPARC 1 will be up and running, and it will be able to deal with 3,000 tons of waste per day. And we're looking at where the waste will go for the 2 landfills as a way to reduce the waste going there. We are planning how things will work. Once we have a result, we will let members know. Now, on the Zero Waste Bay Area plan, in January this year, we worked with the task force with Guangdong on climate change. We set up a working group We want a GBA level initiative to promote circulation of resources. So we want to treat waste as resources to promote this circular economy. Once we have any update, we will let members know. Now over to the DEP about the feces from pig farms. Thank you. About the pig farms, during the evening or when fewer people are around, there may be some discharge from the pig farms. Our officers will step up monitoring and take water samples. We also talk to the AFCD about joint operations to step up control. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chen Xiuhong. Thank you, Chairman. The Secretary and the DEP told us about waste management, air and water quality. We are doing fairly well in those areas. The government cited its figures, but then I'm looking at data from a think tank. The latest report shows the per capita greenhouse gas emission in 2022 in Hong Kong was below that in Singapore and Seoul. That's praiseworthy. This has to do with the tireless efforts of the government departments and also collaboration with the industry. So to tell good stories of ourselves, we should be promoting our achievements. We tell a random person on the street they are not aware of the improvements because they have been part of this gradual process of improvement. So let's double down on publicity and education. Of course, we are on a constant quest for enhancement. I'm looking at paragraph 9, the way forward. The Secretary has set goals, and we are taking things one step at a time. Paragraphs 9 and 10. It's about roadside pollutants, climate change, etc. We're doing well with EVs or electric vehicles. More people are driving EVs now. We have a goal for 2035. We may be able to meet the goal ahead of time. So will we be more aggressive? And this is a question for the Secretary. Will we be more aggressive? Given our EV adoption, and that applies to private cars and commercial vehicles, and also given the supply, significant changes have taken place. So can we shoot for 2030 instead of 2035? Can we stop licensing diesel-based cars by 2030? And also about ozone. And this will require working together with Guangdong. And I know Guangdong has done much as well. And we have what it takes to be more aggressive in terms of our ozone reduction targets or VOC reduction goals. So can the Secretary tell us, given the resolve on Guangdong's side, can we be more aggressive in meeting our clean air goals further ahead of time? Secretary. I thank Mr. Chen for his questions. This is our first step as we report our progress. We want to tell the community about the achievements we have. This is about telling good stories of Hong Kong as we tell them about improvements in our environment so that we can garner greater support for our efforts and people will treasure our environment. And about the roadmap about EVs for 2035. Can we hit the target ahead of time? Let's look at the EV market. It's doing well. Governments in the West have changed their strategy, so we want to be cautious. Let's look at the broad picture. if we are needlessly aggressive in what we do, that may bring negative impact. So we approach this development with caution. Now on ozone, we're doing better and how we're working with the mainland. The mainland has put in much effort and they give massive support for this initiative. The mainland's air quality has seen marked improvement. So you can see the resolve to improve air quality in the mainland, and we are of one mind on this. Now, on ozone, we improve our air quality. And in that process, because we're getting lower levels of nitrogen oxides, and ozone is generated through photochemical processes, so the ozone level goes up. When the chemicals go further down in level, you will see a corresponding drop in the ozone level. So we have a study with Guangdong. We're looking at what our first steps should be to further reduce the ozone levels faster. Now we have EVs and we have decarbonization efforts. And there is synergy at work. So our focus shifts to reducing carbon emissions and ozone levels will drop as a result. Thank you. Mr. Robert Lee. Thank you, Chairman. We're discussing improvements in Hong Kong's environmental quality. The paper covers changes in our air quality, water quality, and waste management. We are achieving results. The EAB has put in much work to achieve this. Our focus is to drive our economy. We have many talent emission schemes. We want a favorable business environment. Talent from the outside also brings their families when they come here. And people wonder if Hong Kong is safe. Air quality is also top of mind for outside talent. Of course, we are achieving great improvement from 5-10 years ago. But let's look at where we stand with other equally advanced cities. Do we have any internal rankings? We talk about our status as an IFC, International Financial Center, but we have a ranking. In some areas we do well, in others we do less well. We have to do better. So for us, where do we stand? How do we compare with other leading cities in the world? In terms of air quality, water quality, in terms of waste management, are we doing better in some areas but not as well in others? Mr. Chung-hung mentioned publicity. We should be telling potential talent about where we're doing well. And in areas we're doing less well, what measures do we have so that we can do better? When talent comes here, they want a good quality of life. And we already have some inherent advantages. We have a great coastline. We have great hiking options. These are where we stand out. So I would like some response from the government. Secretary.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, for your comments. I will give the floor to Director to elaborate on this, but let me first start by saying that we also need to tell good stories about the environment of Hong Kong. This is something we can showcase to the world. As for the points you mentioned in comparison with other cities, I'll give the floor to the Director. Thank you. Let's take a look at this chart. There's a drop in NOx, an increase in ozone. So exactly, where are we in terms of our progress? So in fact, we consider all the data, and then we draw up this chart relating to the long-term health risk of air quality, and we are somewhere in the middle of the WHO's interim targets 2 and 3. Well, this is similar for other places in the world, such as Paris, Milan, Los Angeles. These cities also have similar trends within this range. And in Asia, there are also other cities such as Tokyo, etc., falling in the same range again. So we are basically on par with these neighboring cities. Now, some places fare better. For example, for the cities on islands or somewhere more remote, they may have less headwinds, and there are also some really countryside places such as Canada, and the air quality there is better than Hong Kong. Now, when it comes to, say, the IT3 and IT4 and busier districts such as Hong Kong, we're actually in the right range. Ms. Carmen Khan. Thank you, Chairman. I thank the administration for making all these efforts in improving air quality. My focus is on IPARC, the progress for Phase 1 and Phase 2. For IPARC 2, I understand that it won't come on stream until much later. Tendering won't begin until, tendering won't close until June. So according to your plan, there is a need to extend the NENT and WNT. Now, I share Ms. Chen Yuming's concern because I'm also a delegate for Shenzhen or CPCC member. So I'd like to, on behalf of the Shenzhen Authority, learn more about the waste treatment strategy in Hong Kong. Now, according to your explanation, there is a need to extend these two landfills because of the timetable of constructing the incinerators. Earlier, we passed some pieces of legislation such as producer responsibility schemes, as well as recycling facilities relating to property management. And I need to declare, Chairman, that my family does business relating to environmental protection. So I'd like the administration to tell me more about tackling waste at source. The other point is about the Zero Waste Bay Area. Now, collaboration is essential because, especially for air quality, Hong Kong cannot singly tackle the problem. Now, I understand that for ozone concentration, it presents a more tricky problem. So in terms of collaborating with Greater Bay Area to achieve a Zero Waste Bay Area, what is the government strategy? Because we have different industries for different places in the SAR. The focus is on NOx and VOC, and we have quite high emission targets. Can you tell us more about these two strategies? Now, I will give the floor to the director in a moment to talk about the tackling waste at source or waste reduction. Now, for tackling waste at source, in fact, if we go back to historical data, apart from the 2 years during the pandemic, we've never ceased our effort, and we have reversed the trend. And that in this time of government, the figure has decreased by 7.5%, and we've continued with our efforts in, say, expanding the community recycling network and do more in terms of municipal solid waste. Now, for the other question, producer responsibility, we propose to amend the legislation that is the Products for Eco-Responsibility Ordinance in due course. We'll be tabling this bill into LegCo in due course. And following that, we will also legislate on recycling of EV batteries and also plastic beverage bottles recycling, vehicle tires, or tire waste. We will go through each and every area as mentioned. As well, Zero Waste Bay Area, I'll give the floor to the director. Yes, we work closely with the Bay Area. We also exchange whatever data are available on emission reduction. We need to have regard to our current emission levels and the overall circumstances. That is how much each place can do. Now, in terms of NOx, For example, we need to gauge the volume of vehicles in a city, and then we do some calculations. We also include the use of electric vehicles before setting emission targets. So we need to have regard to the economic activities of each city before coming up with these emission targets. Right, Chairman, I'd like to follow up on the first question relating to recycling facilities managed by property management companies. What is the consideration? Because earlier the idea was floated about installing facilities to be managed by property management. Yes, we have launched a charter. I don't remember the number but there should be over 500 housing estates taking part in the charter. So that covers several 100,000 households, and that means that we'll continue to go by the charter and acquire experience before considering legislation. Next, Mr. Wai-keung. I think it's good news for us to hear about the overall improvement in environmental quality in Hong Kong. In order to build Hong Kong into a livable city in a city ideal for tourism, we need to provide the quality environment for locals and visitors alike. So I think this is really a very long paper. I have lots of questions. But briefly speaking, in relation to misconnections, according to the paper, the government successfully rectified 132 sewer misconnections. And that is why water quality and odor problem near shore have been resolved. But it's common knowledge that there are far more than 132 sewer misconnections. So my next question is whether the departments will continue to be more proactive in tackling misconnections at source to further enhance the water quality near shore. We should also avoid the construction of dry weather flow interceptors at large quantities because the construction is costly. We need to we need to save costs. Now on air quality, again, I have a number of questions. The first one is on Air Quality Health Index, AQHI. We see some figures presented, and that is risk is assessed according to this percentage, and it's a total percentage. But I think more details should be provided, such as the peak values or the breakdown of these data. So is there room to further open up the data for public access? And according to the EPD, there are 5 LIDAR stations to be built. 3 have already been commissioned, and 2 will be commissioned in due course, and that will step up the EPD's efforts in monitoring air quality. So with additional monitoring stations, again, is it possible to allow the public to access the data real-time online so that everyone has a better idea of the situation? Right, 2 questions, Secretary, misconnections and whether more can be done, and also another question on the index. On misconnections, our colleagues have identified thousands of misconnections of foul sewers. And in fact, that's 132 have been corrected. It's not easy to identify and trace the misconnected sewers. Now, I'll give the floor to the Deputy Director to answer the question on air quality. Our colleagues have been working very hard. Now, on misconnection, we checked and collect samples at the outfalls. We checked for, say, the volume of E. coli, and when the percentage or the level is high, we then continue to trace up that main source to find where misconnection takes place. And that's an ongoing effort. And once we've identified the misconnected sewer, we need to approach the drainage services department or other departments such as the buildings department to intercept the flow. And we also need to do it afresh, for example, because we may have overlooked some minor misconnections. We need to do the same thing at the same place repeatedly in order to cut down on pollution load by 90%. And in the first quarter of this year, we've continued to enhance water quality. On air quality, I'll now give the floor to the Deputy Director. Indeed, it is important to release air quality monitoring data. We do have a dedicated website. In terms of major pollutant levels, we release hourly recorded data, such as PM 2.5, ozone, PM 10, etc. And I think what we need to do is to step up publicity, right? So that you already have this website. But that's only the data for the whole of Hong Kong. What about the breakdown by district? Yes, the data are available. Next, Mr. Frankie Yip. I have two follow-up questions. The first one about vehicle tire waste. 2 weeks ago, I put in a written question at the electoral meeting. The Secretary already gave a reply. I have a follow-up question. According to data in 2023, there were 28,300 tons of vehicle tire waste, 13,900 were recycled, and 14,300 were sent to landfill. So my follow-up question is this. Looking at the administration's reply, well, in fact, I asked what the capacity Hong Kong has in recycling the vehicle tire waste, and the answer is 25,000 tons. That means we only have a recycling level of 14,000. So that means that there is still 11,000 outstanding capacity to do more. So why is it that despite that, 14,300 tons of waste was still sent to landfill? My next question is, even if we've exhausted the capacity, we have this plan to recycle vehicle tire waste 100%. Secretary, as you know, and I've been discussing with you, that some recyclers have approached me and asked whether there are facilitation measures for them to operate their factories. Now, according to this answer, you have 20 short-term tenancy sites available for recycling vehicle tire waste. But the tenancy is good only for 5 or 7 years. So is there any plan in the long run for recyclers to be able to handle all the vehicle tire waste in Hong Kong?
The government is phasing out Euro 4 commercial vehicles. Some of those Euro 4 vehicles were classified as Euro 5 when in fact they are Euro 4. When will the government deal with them? They have to be replaced. Does the government have plans to also phase out Euro 5 commercial vehicles? Secretary, 2 questions. The first one on tires, the other one on Euro 5 cars. The DEP will take the question. First, the tires. Eco Park has an operator that focuses on tires. We haven't put in place a ban on tires going to the landfill. Some tires still go to the landfills. We're hoping that with the producer responsibility scheme to be put in place, and then at that point we will ban tires going to landfills. At that point you have to ban, and the tires will no longer go to incinerators. That's also covered in the paper. On Euro 4 and Euro 5 cars, now we're already working on Euro 4 vehicles. Now, for some Euro 4 vehicles, there are some special cases. We look at those applications. We look at the circumstances of the applications, say whether it was a late application or whether it was a Euro 4 car, but the application came in late. So we look at those individual circumstances. We try to be flexible in dealing with those applications. As for Euro 5 cars, we don't have any plans to proceed with them. There are significant differences in the emission levels between Euro 4 and Euro 5 cars. Any follow-up questions from Mr. Frankie Yik? There are large differences between the emission levels of Euro 4 and Euro 5, so we should proceed to deal with Euro 5 cars soon. Mr. Chung-hung. Our achievements in improving the environment speak for themselves. We'll be holding the national games soon. Our water is cleaner than the Seine River, but we should always be seeking to do even better. Now, for HAT's Harbor Area Treatment Scheme, the focus is on the water quality improving for the Victoria Harbor, but we have more water bodies than just the Victoria Harbor around Hong Kong. So in the future, or maybe after the meeting today, can we get information on improvements in the water quality of other water bodies? I have an office in Yuen Long and Chung Mun. Local residents have told me that, and it's about misconnected pipes. This image here, it's Chung Mun River. The water is black, as if it were ink, and it's scary. Of course, not every channel is so black. Some of it is just sludge. But for Chung Mun River in particular, you have the color, you have the stench, and also misconnected pipes. The problem is outstanding. We see improvement, but the problem remains. So do we have any figures showing efforts about inspecting Chung Mun River? How many cases of misconnected pipes have we seen? How many misconnections have been fixed? Do we have figures? Now, the water quality. We have the water quality indicators. We have dissolved oxygen, unionized ammonia nitrogen concentration, and also total inorganic nitrogen, etc. Can we also add visibility as a water quality parameter? Because that's the most intuitive indicator. We have made great progress over the past decade, but we don't have the figures, so we cannot tell if there's been improvement in water quality visibility. So do we have numbers that can be shared about visibility of water? So the first question is very specific. Do we have the details now? If not, maybe we can get the details after the meeting, and that's about the Chung Mun River. And the second question is about the turgidity of the water in Chung Mun River. Thank you. Now for Chung Mun River, for the past 3 decades, we have seen marked improvement. The image shows somewhere upstream. We have installed a large dry weather flow interceptor. There's discharge from rural areas, from unsewered areas. The sewage from those areas will go to the sewers and then go to our sewage treatment works. Now for the downstream areas, we have 4 monitoring stations there. For the past 2 decades, the readings have been at a good level. In Tuen Mun, we have laid public sewers. 19 villages in the upstream area of Tuen Mun River have now been covered by public sewers. For 10 villages, the works are mostly done. As for 2 villages, they are part of the plan. The works are being planned. Our work at Tuen Mun River actually started before the work for Victoria Harbour. So we trace the water quality along the river. When you walk on either side of Tuen Mun River, you do not see any major discharge. But of course, we are not ruling out any discharge. A factory may misconnect a pipe and then some pollutants come out. Over the past couple of years, we saw one case of misconnection. Sorry, if you want to follow up a case, maybe we can get Mr. Lok to talk to you about the specific case after the meeting. Can you get to the second question? Now, visibility, it's about turbidity. Now, for the sea around Hong Kong, the turbidity has gone down across the board. And we will let members have the figures later on. Next, Mr. KWOK. Thank you, Madam Deputy. The government has put in much work to improve the environment. We've done well in improving water and air quality. Now, my concern is about waste. Two landfills, every day more than 10,000 tons of municipal solid waste goes there. I-Park 1 will open soon, and I-Park 2 will see the tendering start soon. But we are nowhere near the goal of zero landfill. So, municipal solid waste charging proved abortive. So what will the government do to raise the recycling rate? For areas with a low recycling rate, what targeted measures would there be? There are products made through recycling. Do we have measures to support businesses doing those work? Will the government take the lead by adopting recycled product? Will there be public education for wider adoption of such product? Now, I agree with Ms. Chen Yunming on a point, and that is, for the northeast landfill, it will be expanded, and that's not something we should do because the area around Tak Kwu Lane will be a key part of the northern metropolis, which you shouldn't put a landfill or a larger landfill there. So what will the government do to fix the water and air pollution there? We need feasible solutions. The government is working with the other cities of the GBA about the Zero Waste Bay Area initiatives. So we are moving some recyclable materials to the mainland for processing. But I didn't hear any specific progress. Why this lack of progress? Shouldn't we redouble our effort to secure opportunities for collaboration? Secretary or DEP? Secretary. Now first, on Zero Waste Bay Area, the DEP will take the other questions. Now for Zero Waste Bay Area, we set up a task force with Guangdong on this. The task force was set up in January. We're exploring different options. Once we have anything specific, we will brief this panel on that. We have set up the task force to follow up on the work, and that's a clear sign of progress. Do we have a rough timetable? We will let members know once we have any update. DEP, please. Thank you. The recycling amount is growing by the year. There is a strong awareness of recycling now. That's because of the publicity and public education over the years. The government has also doubled down on reduction at source. We have installed recycling bins at housing estates. We also have smart recycling bins now. Now for green and community spots, recycling facilities are now available for smaller housing estates or single block buildings. So our recycling facilities now cover 85% of the city's population. We will keep working on this to encourage recycling in the community. The member wondered if we can reuse recycled materials. We have done much on this as well. There are eco bricks, recycled plastics. We have done much to promote recycling along this front for wider adoption of such products. Madam Deputy, I want to say this. To really encourage recycling, you should be going to schools to promote this idea. So please work more closely with the Education Bureau. Let's find a way to raise awareness among students so that their families also adopt this idea, and that will work in the long term. Mr. Kenneth Lau. Madam Deputy, I'm a representative for an indigenous villagers group of Long Tan. I also have land in that area. The West New Territories landfill will expand and it will go live in 2026. The original landfill, started running in 1993. Many garbage trucks visited the area, leading to traffic jam, noise, other environmental problems. The sewage from the landfill also seeped into the river, and that led to ecological problems. The people from Long Tan have strong views, and they objected to the expansion of the New Territories landfill. But the government apparently rode roughshod over the opposition from local villagers. Other members have also commented on this. We need a more comprehensive plan. We also need to get our priorities right. In mid-2022, we did not have the incinerator. Once you have the incinerator, we can look forward to the closure of the landfill earlier. At that point, we approved tens of billions of dollars to expand the landfill. And then our country announced an expansion for Qianhai, more than 100 hectares, within the same week. Maybe it was a misfortune. So my question is, apart from the West New Territories landfill, there are also other offensive facilities in Tuen Mun. We put those places in the most remote areas. We have Columbaria in those areas, and then iPark 2 is in the pipeline. If iPark 2 goes live as planned in 2030, will the restoration and greening of the landfills proceed right away? Do we have a timeline for closing the West New Territories landfill? Proper waste management will mean you can avoid the secondary contamination. You shouldn't have to move the ash from the incinerators elsewhere. So do we have a timeline for closing the landfill?
Mr. Wu, our Deputy Director, will take this question. I will answer these questions. Now, Wentex will go ahead, and we understand the residents' concerns. We've given a number of undertakings. For example, in the past, we took the land route for the transport of refuse. Now this is basically marine based, and that means it's an 8:2 ratio. And we've also designed very deep pits and followed by some shields as high as 30-meter tall in order to block the odor. And riding on this successful experience in NENT extension, in managing odor and waste disposal, we will also introduce these measures in WNTX management. Now, for waste to energy facility, IPARC 1 will be commissioned, IPARC 2 will be commissioned later on as well. And in terms of flue gas emission, we adopt the state-of-the-art technology. Similar to Shenzhen, we will also build taller incinerators to address residents' concerns. As for the landfill extensions timetable, we've actually set out a very clear one. That is, by 2035, we will stop using landfills for MSW disposal. So the landfills will remain, but they will only deal with the residue or the ash of incinerated waste. And this will be handled by IPARC 2. In fact, apart from that, we also have construction waste. Every day, the average volume of construction waste disposed of is close to 45,000 tons. And in fact, by then it will substantially reduce in volume. I hope that I've answered your question about meeting targets. Ms. Elizabeth Quater, thank you, Chairman. First of all, I agree with Ms. Chen Ming and Mr. Kenneth Lau, and I'm also concerned about landfill extensions. As I just heard from the administration, we'll have zero landfill waste by 2035, and that's still our target. But the problem has been a long-standing one for residents in the new territories. So I'd like to seek a roadmap from the administration as to what milestones are put in place before we reach the ultimate target by 2035. And about zero waste Bay Area, I think this is one way out for us. And I understand that the Secretary is liaising closely with the mainland authorities. I look forward to good news. Now, on waste disposal, I'd like to ask a number of questions. The first one is on food waste. The second one is on the disposal of vehicle tire waste, as Mr. Frankie already asked. Another area of my concern is how EV batteries or retired batteries are handled. I think on top of disposal of the batteries, we also need to provide training for mechanics. I'd like to hear from the administration whether there are plans for us to achieve this vision. As for water quality and misconnections, I have some strong feelings, Secretary. I remember 17 years ago when I was in Sha Tin District Council, the Secretary at the time checked by opening each and every manhole cover, and it was such hard work. I am surprised, however, that a decade on, we are still checking every manhole manually, and we're talking about over 10,000 of them. Are there new technologies available? I'd encourage the Secretary to harness the latest technologies. The second point is about penalty. Is it because of our leniency that there are the problem of soil misconnections are so rampant? Because it's a source of pollution, we need to increase deterrence by introducing heavier penalties. Finally, I'd like to show appreciation for the Bureau's work. In fact, we've done a lot to improve Hong Kong's environment. Many friends coming in from around the world, including overseas and the mainland, have all said that we've done a good work in protecting the environment. So keep it up. Secretary. I'll give the floor to Director. Thank you. Thank you, member, for your encouragement. In fact, more than a decade ago, we started to work on improving Sha Tin River, and now for Shengmun River in Sha Tin, in fact, we have achieved some results. There is biodiversity in the seabed of, under Shengmun River, crabs, fish, so on and so forth, and we've leveraged on technology as well. In the past, we indeed manually checked manholes by opening each and every manhole cover in Sha Tin. Now we deploy inspection boats, and we deploy robots to check the pipes, etc. We take a multi-pronged approach in improving the environment. And that is why we've been able to make substantial improvements in the water quality along the Victoria Harbour within just 2 years. As for highly polluted areas, we will continue to do our best to improve water quality in Hong Kong. Right, any other views and comments from members? Dr. Wai-keung. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to express my appreciation for the SAR government for the sustained efforts in improving the environment. These efforts have borne fruit. On water quality, I can't help but recall that around 1997, when I was appointed as district councillor in Sha Tin, the Director of Environmental Protection told us how the water quality in Shengmun River should be improved, and that dredging no longer worked because the stench coming from dredging actually made the matter worse. So bioremediation was adopted, and since then we've seen significant improvements. As of today, we're able to hold the dragon boat competitions there without being worried, without having to worry about water pollution or the pungent smell. So of course, you need to take a multi-pronged approach. And we've adopted a technology, and we've also made use of very advanced infrastructure in order to achieve the results. And inevitably, we need to work with the mainland cities in the Greater Bay Area in order to achieve zero waste Bay Area. For example, on improving air quality, through sharing of data and regional collaboration, air quality in the Bay Area has significantly improved. Of course, that's really commendable. My question is, in terms of stepping up regional collaboration to achieve zero waste Bay Area, can you tell us specifically what will be taken forward? Or can you tell us whether you've formed certain strategies to take matters forward? Well, I think Secretary already replied to this question. Let's see if he'd like to supplement. Right, as mentioned in taking forward zero waste Bay Area, which is one of our environmental protection initiatives, we will leverage on green manufacturing and recycling. Together with proper waste disposal, we'll be able to promote green economy and build a green industry. In January this year, we set up a task force with the Guangdong Authority, and we're taking forward the Zero Waste Bay Area initiative. That means we're exploring different options, and once we've formed some specific action plans, we'll brief the Council in due course. Right, I do look forward to that. Right, if there are no more members waiting to speak, then it's my turn. I'd just like to sum up what other members have said. I believe that in terms of water or air quality, overall speaking, the environment in Hong Kong is quite good. But the biggest challenge facing us is waste disposal. I don't really have a question. I understand that the government is working on it. So thank you, Secretary. Now, according to the administration's paper, the administration plans to publish in the Gazette a notice in May 2025 to incorporate IPAC 1 and the landfill extensions in the relevant subsidiary legislation. In the second quarter in 2025, the government will introduce amendments to the Producer Eco-Responsibility Ordinance to establish a common legal framework for producer responsibility schemes. And at the same time, the government will propose amendments to waste disposal designated waste disposal facility regulation to stipulate that specified waste disposal facilities will no longer accept and handle vehicle tire waste. Members, any views on the proposed legislative timetable? As soon as possible, right? Right, if there are no further views, I think that members who have spoken are generally in support of the government's initiatives and they'd like them to be taken forward as quickly as possible. The next item is the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, the third Hong Kong implementation plan. Let's invite the administration for this item to come in. After the administration has presented the paper, I will open the floor. Madam Chair, members, right, please switch on the Undersecretary's mic. Welcome. Well, I will say a few words and then I'll give the floor to my colleague to walk you through the PowerPoint presentation. In relation to the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, or POPs, well, please speak into the mic, Undersecretary. In relation to the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, or the Convention, seeks to protect human health and the environment from harmful effects of POP. It's an international convention. Our country is a party to the convention, which entered into force in China on the 11th of November 2004 and became applicable to the Hong Kong SAR. According to Article 7 of the Convention, countries or participating countries should draw up and implement a National Implementation Plan, or NIP, for discharging obligations under the Convention. And we're here to brief members on the third Hong Kong Implementation Plan. Each party to the Convention should do its best in adopting measures or to control or manage the trade, manufacturing, or use of POP, to avoid unintentional discharge POPs in the environment. Well, basically, in Hong Kong, we regulate POPs through the Hazardous Chemicals Control Ordinance, CAP 595, and the Pesticides Ordinance, CAP 133. As for the National Implementation Plan, in 2006 and 2016, respectively, we briefed members on the first and the second NIPs. The first and the second National Implementation Plans submitted to the Convention subsequently also included the Hong Kong Implementation Plan. At the 7th and 8th meetings of the COP to the Convention held in 2015 and 2017, respectively, the parties agreed to add 5 new POPs to the annexes. Our country accepted the amendments on the 7th of March 2023, and they became effective in China on the 6th of June 2023, which is applicable to Hong Kong. We completed amendments to CAP 595, the Hazardous Chemicals Control Ordinance, and Pesticides Ordinance CAP 133 in July 2023. Now, these items came into force on the 20th of October 2023. According to the convention, within 2 years of the amendment, the party should submit the updated NIP, which should also include an updated Hong Kong IP, which is the third one. Starting from the middle of 2003, as a result, we have started our work, including questionnaire surveys and field surveys. We also held a consultation workshop in August 2024. We all reviewed the latest data, POP's data available to assess the current levels and also the estimated risks. We also reviewed the second Hong Kong IP as well as our action plans. Now, we've noted that in the ambient environment, the levels and concentrations of POPs have continued to decrease, and we have noted that they are of safe level and comparable to the levels in other advanced countries. And apart from legislative amendments as mentioned in 2023, we've also updated the relevant lists related to dietary exposure and also human load in order to complete the assessment and analysis. And we've also established a comprehensive monitoring system and devise a plan. On a regular basis, we release the data on a dedicated website for public monitoring. We also adopt the best available techniques and also best practical measures in order to control the discharge of dioxins and fluorines in the local environment. And we've also updated the website and step up regional collaboration with mainland cities. I'll give the floor to my colleague.
Dr. Au, please. Thank you. Am I coming through? Yes. Now, I will brief members on the implementation of the Stockholm Convention, especially our work on drafting the third NIP for Hong Kong. The Stockholm Convention is about regulating persistent organic pollutants, mostly used in industrial chemicals and pesticides. These POPs can endure in the environment. And these POPs find their way into animals, and they cause hazard to both human beings and other animals. So for us in Hong Kong, we have laws, regulation, environmental monitoring, and other feasible ways of monitoring the levels of these POPs. The Stockholm Convention protects human health and animals from POPs. In implementing the convention, each state party has to control the level of POPs and also regulate the import, export, production, and use of POPs. The goal is to reduce and ultimately eliminate POPs produced intentionally or otherwise. Now, at first in 2001, we had 12 POPs, and then on the 11th of November 2004, our country became a party to the Stockholm Convention, and the HKSAR was also subject to the convention. Article 7 states that each party needs to put in place an NIP. After ratifying the convention, each state party will have to submit a plan, and then based on the circumstances, the NIPs will have to be reviewed and updated. Now, an overview of our NIPs. We have had 3 NIPs in total, and then through the central government, we submitted our plans to the convention. In 2007, in April 2007, our country submitted their NIP, and that included our plan. And then in 2015 and 2017, at the 7th and 8th COPs, 5 POPs were added to the annexes. So on the 7th of March 2027, our country also accepted the amendments, and then on the 6th of June 2027, these amendments took effect. So our country will have to submit its new NIP, and we had to prepare a new NIP as well. So the first regulative measure is legislative in nature, meaning controlling the import, export, use, and manufacturing of such POPs. We have 2 pieces of legislation in Hong Kong. One, the Hazardous Chemicals Control Ordinance, CAP 595. That's about POPs in industrial chemicals. The other ordinance is CAP 133, being the Pesticides Ordinance, the use of POPs in pesticides. The second measure we adopt is continuous environmental monitoring. Meaning we monitor the level of POPs in our environment, such as in the water. That way, we devise measures to control the import, export, use, and making of such POPs. We see a general drop in the level of POPs, and POP levels are at a very low level, and they're at a safe level, and we're on a par with other developed economies. Another measure we have to take is to update our NIP. We have a few tasks going on, or tasks having been completed. So we consult stakeholders that come into contact with POPs, government departments, labs, trade associations, academia. We find out how they use substances involving POPs. From what we know, there is no import or export, no making, no use of POPs. There is a very small amount of import. Labs need POPs for certification or testing. As for our environment, we also assess the level of POPs in our environment based on the latest data. That's how we assess the risks to the people from POPs. We also review and update our NIP and strategies as well as action plans. On consultation, in August 2024, we held a seminar. We got 60 representatives involved. They came from the academia, trade associations. Participation was good. Participants agreed that the workshop was helpful. They raised some questions about the new POPs added to the convention, on the impact of the POPs as they were used in university labs. For our NIP, we don't import, export, make, or use POPs. We don't have industries using chemicals containing POPs. Each year, we only import roughly 10 grams for lab tests. For environmental monitoring, we look at the ambient air. POP levels are at a very low level. We are roughly at the similar level with places like South Korea, the US, Brazil, Sweden, and Germany. POP levels at sea are very low, posing little risk to the marine biota. As for food, our POP levels are well below the safety limit set by our country and also the level set by the US and the EU. on processes that may generate POPs as a byproduct. Our levels are broadly the same as the US, Spain, and we are also aligned with global practice in assessing the levels. As for dioxin intake, we're also at a very low level. It's at a very minimal level, way below the safety level set by the WHO. The same goes for dietary intake at a very low level. So the organic pollutants are at a very low level. The intake through respiration of food is also very low in level, and there's little carcinogenic risk or chronic health risk. We have done a few things. One, updating our legislation. Our country accepted the proposed amendments proposed at the 7th and 8th meetings of the KWOK. So in 2023, we amended the Hazardous Chemicals Control Ordinance and the Pesticides Ordinance. Those changes took effect on the 20th of October 2023. So we will incorporate those chemicals into our own laws. We will ban the import, export, use, and making of those POPs. To improve our list, we will keep monitoring the environment, dietary intake, and also the body burden to give us a full picture for analysis. We have a website. We put the information on the website to show the public that those levels are very low and the government monitors the situation regularly. For unintentionally produced POPs, meaning POPs generated as a byproduct, that we adopt the best technology or best technique available to minimize the output. That's reduction at source. That includes the level of dioxins in the environment. For the crematoria licensees, we further tighten the limit. We also gradually phase out the older crematoria to further reduce dioxin levels. As for our integrated waste reduction efforts, we also take appropriate measures. For clinical waste, chemical waste, and municipal solid waste, we minimize the level of emission. So the incineration has to be above 850 degrees Celsius. The flue gas residence time has to be at least 2 seconds. This design can slash the dioxin emission levels. Data show a massive reduction in dioxin levels. On raising public awareness, we update our website regularly. And we also put the annexes of the convention in our NLP, and we also remain in touch with the mainland when needed. We provide joint oversight, we share our data. We also enhance our testing. Our third NIP was completed, and we will submit our plan to our country for incorporation into our country's own NIP. Further submission, that's all from me. Thank you. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button.
In the interest of time, each member will have 4 minutes questions and answers, please. Let's start with Mr. Chung-hung. Thank you, Madam Chair. Persistent organic pollutants are chemicals that can remain in the environment for a long period of time and accumulate in the body of living organisms along the food chain. And these are significant harmful effects. I looked at the data and I understand that at the moment the level of POPs in Hong Kong are on the low side and it's manageable. I have a number of questions, but first of all, Chair, I need to declare that I'm a senior consultant for CLP. Now, I understand that the administration consulted the sector. For example, in August last year, a workshop or a seminar was held. Practitioners in the industry and other stakeholders took part in the seminar. It was well received. I note that they've also made some inquiries. For example, about the impact of this implementation plan on labs in universities which would be using the toxic chemicals. According to paragraph 9A, Hong Kong imports about 10 grams of toxic chemicals for testing in labs which contain the POPs. And that there may be exchange of POPs among laboratories. Now, I want to know whether there is a stringent mechanism for the handling of POPs afterwards. Are there clear guidelines? Albeit just 10 grams imported in Hong Kong. Now, the second point is this. I think we're concerned about the annex in 2014, 2018, 2022. The table sets out the average concentration of POPs in ambient air. Now, I'm not an expert in this area, but I'm asking this question for the public. For example, for a number of chemicals such as PCBs, PPBs, so on and so forth, according to your analysis, the levels are lower than other cities like Japan. Now, but can you give us an idea what's the reference value? Say for this particular chemical is 50.54, and that's the average. Why is it that the data presents an increasing trend from 2014, 2018 to 2022? Can you tell us why? Has it to do with the ambience in general? My next question is that it takes a long time to analyze the concentration of POPs. Is that why that no data from 2023, 2024 are available? Let's see if the Undersecretary or Dr. Au will take the question. I will take the first one, and for the specific data, the EPD can answer the question. The member is correct in pointing out that a small amount of POPs is imported for use by school laboratories or other laboratories. In fact, in point 5, Article 3 of the Convention, it provides that unless otherwise provided in the Convention, this Convention does not apply to POPs for laboratory use for the purpose of research or for referencing. So as mentioned, for the amount imported, they need to apply for permission first, and the government imposes suitable conditions in the import process. The conditions also include, for example, the handling of the chemicals. Now I'll give the floor to the Deputy Director. Thank you. I'd like to first of all explain to Mr. Chen how the POPs used by the laboratories will be disposed of after use. In fact, for chemical waste coming from labs, they must be collected by our designated licensed collectors. The waste will then be transported to the waste disposal facility in Qingyi for proper disposal, and that high temperature incineration will be applied to break down the chemicals. There is a rigorous process involved, and that breaching the process will lead to prosecution. So that means for dangerous waste or chemical waste, you have a legal framework for the proper disposal, and that the participants will follow the framework. True. They will make use of the high temperature incineration in the facility to disintegrate the chemicals to make sure that the chemicals do not remain in the environment. And to take the second question about the surveillance data, again, you're correct in terms of the concentrations of pollutants. We adopt the very small denomination in picograms. That is to the minus 12 in our testing. So time is needed to confirm the results of various tests, and we apologize for providing only the 2022 data in the paper. But the 2023 data are in fact available. Perhaps we can submit the supplementary information later. For the 2024 data, they are still being processed, and there is a time lag. Now you ask about pentachlorobenzene and the rise in number. Now for penta and hexachlorobenzene, you note the very minor increase over the years, but we're talking about really small amounts measured in picograms. So we've yet to identify or ascertain this increasing trend. In fact, around the world, efforts have been made to ban the use of chemicals to make sure that the contamination in ambient air will go down. But we also need to check other data in order to look deeper into this matter and verify the trend. Right, please do tell us after the meeting, provide more data to see if this trend is indeed true. I'd like to supplement as well, Chairman, about the concentration of certain chemicals in the ambient air. Now, in fact, let me supplement. The characteristic of POPs in the ambient air are quite special. And like Dr. Ao said, we're measuring the level in picograms. So that means in really small amounts. We need to do tests and collect samples with the use of some equipment. These equipments are state-of-the-art. They are able to detect these chemicals, but the detection does not mean that the concentration might cause harmful effects to human health. So the fluctuations are just normal. For hexachlorobenzene and pentachlorobenzene in the ambient air, I can give you some examples. For crustaceans in the sea, such as mussels and other local catch. This is our focus because our people are fond of seafood. So we compare the level of POPs in local seafood with the levels in the US or in other places. And I'd say that we have been adopting very effective monitoring measures. Madam Chair, I get that. I'd like to have the 2023 data available after the meeting for us to better understand whether there is an increasing trend for certain pollutants. Or perhaps you can also add footnotes. You can tell us, for example, for some of these contaminants, you are keeping a close eye on them. Right, please provide the data as quickly as possible. Ms. Carmen Khan. This is a question for the administration. You told us that you've completed the drafting of the third Hong Kong implementation plan and it will be submitted to our country. And I'd like to know whether you've consulted our country in the process. The second question is this. The second Hong Kong IP was submitted in 2016. Now, I found a copy online. I don't know whether it's accurate. According to my online search, the implementation plan wasn't submitted until much later, a lapse of several years. So I'd like to know your plan for the third Hong Kong IP. The national IP should be submitted in June. Does it mean that the Hong Kong IP will be submitted together as well? Now, this is a very technical matter, but still, we need to be able to explain to the public because it really sounds daunting. Persistent organic pollutants. So my question is about gatekeeping. What does the Bureau do when it comes to, for example, food safety, as mentioned by others just now? Because the Establishment Subcommittee will be discussing an item that is a senior principal EO in charge of food safety. So I think this could be a relevant topic, so please do reassure us. Undersecretary, the EPD will explain the steps to take, and I will also explain about the second Hong Kong IP available online. Now, in taking forward the Hong Kong IP, we need a collaborative effort, not just the EEB, but also other government departments, such as the WSD, FEHD, Center for Food Safety, and Department of Health, so on and so forth. They take follow-up action according to their own respective portfolios. Now, you mentioned the Center for Food Safety. They monitor the presence of POPs in food. So to sum up, all these departments work together to take some measures forward. I'll give the floor to the Deputy Director now.
Dr. O. Now, the second HKIP the convention with its amendments took effect in 2013 and 2016. The plan was submitted within 2 years after we accepted the amendments. So in 2016, we submitted our HKIP through our country. Our usual practice is that we upload our HKIP upon the submission by our country of their own NIP, because we work through our country. We wait till our country submits its own NIP, and then we upload our third HKIP. So we should be doing that within months instead of years, so the public should be able to keep an eye on it. Electrical should be able to see it. So we can put our minds at ease because we have departments and bureaus keeping an eye, because we are unfamiliar with these complex matters. And we are broadly on a par with other advanced economies. And we have to be assured that we're safe, and we need departments to act as gatekeepers here. Indeed, and the data shows the POPs are at a low level in Hong Kong. Next, Mr. Wai-keung. Thank you, Madam Deputy. We support the HAIP. This is our obligation, and we want to keep everyone safe. I'm looking at the annex. The pops are mostly going down, with a couple of exceptions with notes. And that's hexachlorobenzene and pentachlorobenzene. Those levels in 2022 were higher than those of 2014 and 2018. The note said our levels were way below those reported in Japan. So the message is we're safe, we're below Japan's level. But those substances don't just come about in nature, those pops are made artificially. So my question is, has the EPD tracked down the source of these two substances? Do we have measures to further reduce their levels? Do we have measures to control these pops at source? Now, my next question is about the presentation, and it's about the old crematoria. Those older crematoria produce pops. We only heard about tightening the standards, but we have no idea how far the tightening will go. So, for Hong Kong, do we have such older crematoria that need to be replaced? Will that require funding for modification? Will that require a replacement exercise? Just to give us a sense of what to expect. Undersecretary. I'll take the question about the crematoria first. We adopt the best practical means and best technologies available. At crematoria, the combustion happens at no less than 850 degrees Celsius, and the flue gas has to stay there for at least 2 seconds to keep the dioxins within the crematoria. That approach is in keeping with our emissions rules. The WHO's latest rules and also our own air pollution control ordinance also lay down standards. That means new crematoria will have to follow these stricter standards. We have also reviewed our crematoria. When a crematorium is replaced or reprovisioned, we do come back to electrical for funding, and we have put in such funding proposals. Now, for Wai-keung, for example, the new crematorium, or when an existing crematorium reaches the end of its life cycle, we will follow up as appropriate, and we will follow the latest standards. Now over to my colleague, the Deputy Director. Now for two pops, their levels actually went up. As we touched on before, these two pops come from industrial chemicals. And we have banned the import, export, making and using. So there should be no locally made pops for these two substances. Our pop levels are below those of the US and Japan. The unit we're talking about is a picogram, meaning 1 to the power of -12, 1 in a trillion. So we have very precise measurements in place. The detection limits are very rigorous, and we will keep an eye on the data going forward to see if that's a measurement variation or whether there is actually an upward trend. We will keep an eye on the data. Now, from the latest figure, 2023, for these two POPs, hexachlorobenzene and pentachlorobenzene, they fell 37 and 6.13. So there may have been some variation in the measurement, but we will keep an eye on the substances. We can reassure the member that we're talking about very low levels. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I got a clear response. Hopefully, the 2022 levels were down to variations in measurement, and the latest levels point to a reduction. So let's keep an eye on the changes. Now, the new facilities will be fine. It's reassuring to hear that the existing facilities are also in line with the rules, but I heard about tightening the standards. So let's get that right so that we don't end up with a need for a major replacement exercise. So we're simply replacing the facilities as part of the normal life cycle replacement exercises. So after the facility reaches the end of its life cycle and then we replace it. Dr. Roy Yang. Thank you. Just to supplement the Deputy Director's response on the variation. So we look at the concentrations of hexachlorobenzene and pentachlorobenzene. These are POPs. We look at the risk. We don't look at the absolute concentration. "99% of the risks to our health comes from food because they dissolve in fat. Now, as for the risks from the air we breathe in, that's below 1%. That's to reassure members. Even with the variation, our risk assessment has to take into account the way we are exposed to the elements from the air or from food. So we don't just look at the variation in the concentration. So very specific. Thank you. Deputy Chair, I thank Dr. Yang for his supplement. I'm not trying to spread panic here. I'm simply trying to make sure that the risk is minimal. Now, Note 9 also states that our monthly intake is 14.44 picograms, whereas the WHO standard is 70 picograms. So we're at an even lower level. That means even factoring in the variation, we can expect a minimal impact on public health. If no further members wish to speak, we can conclude this item. So next item, any other business? There being no other business, I adjourn the meeting here. Thank you.